What happens when a Hollywood legend known for speaking his mind sits across from one of daytime television's most outspoken hosts, and neither one backs down? Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The cameras are already rolling. The audience is clapping as Samuel L. Jackson walks out, smiling, waving, cool as ever in a sharp suit. He gives a quick hug to Whoopi Goldberg, a nod to the rest of the panel, and takes his seat at the table on The View. The vibe at first? Light, friendly, respectful. Whoopi leans in with that familiar half-smile. Samuel, it's always good to see you. You never come quiet, you always bring something. Samuel chuckles. Well, if I came quiet, y'all would think something was wrong with me. Audience laughs. Another host jumps in. You've been everywhere lately, interviews, premieres, speaking about politics again. Samuel nods. Yeah, because I can. There's a ripple in the crowd, not negative, just alert. He says it calmly but firmly. Whoopi tilts her head. Well, some people think actors should maybe just act. The audience makes that soft, oh sound. It's not loud, but it's there. Samuel doesn't smile this time. He leans back slightly. Some people think a lot of things. Whoopi keeps her tone measured. No, I'm serious. You've been very vocal about elections, about social issues. Do you think celebrities sometimes overstep? Samuel folds his hands. Overstep what? Citizenship? There's a pause. Whoopi replies, no, but when you have millions of followers, influence like that, don't you think there's responsibility in not pushing people one direction? Samuel nods slowly. There's responsibility in telling people to think. Audience applause starts building. Whoopi raises a hand slightly. But are you telling them to think, or telling them what to think? That shifts the tone. Samuel looks directly at her. Whoopi, I've been around long enough to know the difference. One of the co-hosts tries to soften it. I think what she's asking is, do you ever worry about dividing audiences? Samuel responds immediately. If my opinion divides you, then maybe we weren't that united to begin with. The audience reacts louder now. Some clap. A few murmur. Whoopi exhales through her nose, not angry but engaged. See, this is where I push back. Because I've always said, you can have your opinion, but when you're in entertainment, people come to you to escape. Samuel shakes his head. No, they come to be entertained. And sometimes truth is entertaining. A few audience members clap harder at that. Whoopi leans forward. But people are tired, Samuel. They're exhausted. They don't want every interview to turn into a political speech. Samuel replies calmly, then maybe don't ask political questions. The audience gasps lightly. One host says, oh, Whoopi gives a tight smile. We're not attacking you. I didn't say you were, Samuel answers. I'm just answering. There's a silence that lasts a second too long for live television. One of the panelists jumps in. Let's talk about your recent comments about media bias. That stirred up a lot online. Samuel nods. Because it's true. Whoopi raises an eyebrow. That's a bold statement. Not bold, Samuel says. Observed. Observed by you, Whoopi counters. And by millions of others, he replies. Audience claps again, more divided now. Some applause, some hesitation. Whoopi turns slightly toward him. You know, I've been in this industry for decades. I've seen cycles. I've seen outrage. I've seen celebrities think they're activists and activists think they're celebrities. Samuel's jaw tightens slightly. And I've seen silence do more damage than noise. The audience reaction grows louder, a mix of applause and murmurs. Whoopi says carefully, so you're implying that people who don't speak the way you do are silent? No, Samuel says evenly. I'm implying that when you have a platform and you're afraid to use it because it might upset sponsors, that's silence. The crowd goes oich. One host looks stunned. Wow, Whoopi doesn't break eye contact. Are you saying that about this show? Samuel pauses. I'm saying it in general. Whoopi presses. But you're here. So if you have something to say about this table, say it. The energy shifts. You can feel the audience lean forward. Samuel nods slowly. All right. I think sometimes shows like this try to balance so hard that you end up saying nothing at all. The room goes quiet. Whoopi's expression hardens just slightly. You think we say nothing? I think, Samuel replies, measured but intense, that sometimes strong opinions get softened so nobody feels uncomfortable. A co-host jumps in defensively. That's called having a discussion. Samuel turns to her. Discussion is fine. But when you're more worried about backlash than truth, that's not discussion. Audience applause starts again, louder this time. Whoopi finally leans back in her chair. So you're saying we're scared? Samuel shrugs lightly. I'm saying I'm not. There's that silence again. The kind producers hate. Whoopi gives a short laugh, but it's tight. You've never been afraid to say anything. We all know that. Samuel nods. Exactly. The host next to Whoopi tries to pivot. Let's talk about your new project. But Whoopi cuts in gently. No, I want to finish this. The audience reacts with a mix of cheers and nervous laughter. She turns fully toward him. You and I both know live television is complicated. It's not just opinions. It's responsibility. Samuel answers immediately. Responsibility to who? To viewers, Whoopi says. To the country. To keeping things from tearing apart. Samuel responds. Truth doesn't tear things apart. Lies do. The audience explodes into applause. Whoopi shakes her head slightly. But what you call truth, someone else calls perspective. And that's fine, Samuel says. But don't ask me to water mine down. There's visible tension now. The co-hosts glance at each other. One whispers something off mic. Whoopi softens her tone slightly. Nobody's asking you to water it down. Samuel leans forward. It feels like that sometimes. When actors speak out, suddenly it's stay in your lane. But when business leaders or politicians talk about movies, nobody tells them to stay in theirs. The audience claps again, this time more unified. Whoopi pauses. She nods once. That's a fair point. There's a tiny shift, the first hint of common ground. But then she adds, however, when you speak with the intensity you do, you know it sparks division. Samuel responds without hesitation. Maybe division isn't always bad. Maybe it forces clarity. The room buzzes. One host says quietly, this is getting heated. Samuel glances at her. I'm not heated. Whoopi smiles slightly. Oh, you're heated. He smirks. I'm passionate. Audience laughs lightly, tension easing just a hair. But Whoopi's next words pull it right back. Passion is powerful. But sometimes passion without pause can cause damage. Samuel's eyes narrow slightly. Damage to who? To conversations, Whoopi says. To people trying to meet in the middle. Samuel replies, calm but firm. Not everything belongs in the middle. The audience reacts sharply, louder than before. And you can feel it now. This isn't a casual disagreement anymore. It's turning into something bigger. And it's only just getting started. The audience is still buzzing from that last line. You can feel the room split. Not in a hostile way, but in that electric live TV way where everyone realizes this isn't scripted banter anymore. Whoopi exhales slowly and folds her hands on the table. Okay, she says measured. If not everything belongs in the middle, then where does it belong? Samuel doesn't hesitate. On whatever side it's supposed to be on. A couple of audience members clap immediately. Others stay quiet. Whoopi nods once. So compromise doesn't matter? Compromise matters, Samuel replies. But not on fundamentals. Joy shifts in her seat. But who decides what's fundamental? Samuel turns slightly toward her. The individual. That's the whole point. Joy shakes her head. But that's how you end up with everyone yelling and nobody listening. Samuel leans forward. No, that's how you end up with people finally being honest. The crowd murmurs again. Whoopi interjects before it spirals. Honesty is important, but tone matters too. Samuel gives a half smile. You mean my tone? The audience laughs nervously. Whoopi smiles back, but it's pointed. Yes, your tone. He spreads his hands. This is just my voice. Sonny jumps in. No one's attacking your voice. But sometimes when celebrities speak in absolutes, it shuts down dialogue. Samuel looks at her carefully. If I say I believe in justice, is that an absolute? Sonny answers quickly. No. If I say I believe people should vote? No. If I say media needs to do better? Sonny pauses. That depends on what you mean by better. Samuel nods. Exactly. That's the conversation. Whoopi leans in again. But when you say media is afraid, you're painting with a broad brush. There are journalists who risk their lives. I didn't say journalists, Samuel responds firmly. I said media structures. The audience makes that low hum sound. Joy crosses her arms lightly. But you're on media right now. And I'm grateful, Samuel says calmly. But gratitude doesn't cancel critique. A few claps ripple through the audience. Whoopi glances at the crowd, then back at him. You know what's interesting? When you came up in this business, actors didn't talk this openly about politics. Samuel nods. Because the cost was higher. Or because they understood the separation, Whoopi counters. No, he replies evenly. Because studios could blacklist you. The audience reacts loudly to that. Whoopi raises her eyebrows. You think that still happens? Samuel doesn't blink. Not the same way. But pressure exists. Sunny looks intrigued. Pressure from who? From networks. From sponsors. From social media outrage cycles. From people who decide what's safe. Joy jumps in, a little sharper now. So you're saying we're controlled? Samuel turns to her. I'm saying everyone feels pressure. Whoopi studies him. Do you feel controlled? Samuel shakes his head. No, because I stopped caring about approval a long time ago. There's applause, louder this time. Whoopi gives a small laugh. That must be nice. Samuel looks at her directly. It is. That lands harder than expected. The audience quiets again. Whoopi tilts her head. So what about responsibility to young fans? Kids watching you. Samuel nods slowly. I want them to see someone who stands on what they believe. But what if they disagree? Joy asks. Then I hope they stand on what they believe, he replies instantly. There's scattered applause. Sunny presses further. But what if your words influence them before they form their own views? Samuel leans back slightly. That assumes they're incapable of independent thought. Sunny shakes her head. No, it assumes influence is powerful. It is, Samuel agrees. Which is why silence is also powerful. Whoopi's voice lowers slightly. You keep coming back to silence like it's a moral failure. Samuel looks at her carefully. Sometimes it is. The audience reacts, louder, more divided now. Joy says, that's unfair. Some people choose silence because they don't know enough. Samuel nods. Then say that. Say, I don't know enough. That's honest. Whoopi pauses at that. There's a brief, heavy silence at the table. One of the producers off camera can be heard faintly cueing time. But Whoopi ignores it. Let me ask you something directly, she says. Do you think this show avoids hard truths? Samuel takes a breath. The audience holds theirs. I think this show navigates them carefully. Whoopi's eyes narrow slightly. Carefully or cautiously? Sometimes those are the same thing, he replies. Joy shakes her head. Careful conversation is not cowardice. I didn't say cowardice, Samuel responds. But you implied fear, Joy pushes. Samuel looks at her calmly. Fear and caution aren't insults. They're realities. Sunny chimes in, trying to mediate. I think what's happening here is we're talking about two different things. You're talking about conviction. We're talking about collective impact. Samuel nods. Fair. Whoopi watches him closely. But collective impact matters. Words ripple. So does avoidance, Samuel says. The audience claps again. Whoopi sighs softly. You always do this. Samuel smiles faintly. Do what? You make it sound simple. It is simple, he replies. It's not easy. But it's simple. Joy looks skeptical. Life isn't simple. No, Samuel agrees. But integrity is. That line hits. The audience applauds louder than before. Whoopi leans back, studying him. You really believe that? I do. She nods slowly. Even if it costs you roles? Samuel shrugs. I've had a long career. There's laughter and applause. Whoopi presses again. But what about younger actors watching you? They don't have your security. Samuel's tone softens slightly. Then I'd tell them to be strategic. But not silent. Sunny tilts her head. So now you're saying strategy matters? Samuel smiles slightly. Of course it does. I'm not reckless. Joy jumps in quickly. But your statements sometimes feel absolute. Samuel turns to her. Conviction feels absolute to people who don't share it. The audience reacts again, louder, more intense. Whoopi holds up a hand. Okay, let's slow this down. She looks directly into the camera for a second, a classic live TV grounding move. Then back at him. Here's my concern, she says calmly. We are in a time where people are already divided. When powerful voices speak forcefully, it can deepen that divide. Samuel listens without interrupting. And I'm not saying don't speak, she continues. I'm saying, sometimes the way you speak matters more than what you're saying. There's quiet in the room. Samuel considers that for a moment. Then he says measured, maybe. But sometimes strong language wakes people up. The audience claps again. Whoopi responds. And sometimes it pushes them further away. Samuel meets her gaze. Then maybe they were never listening. There it is again. That edge. The crowd reacts audibly, some cheering, some murmuring disagreement. Joy leans forward. That's dismissive. Samuel's voice stays calm. No, it's realistic. Sonny interjects, or it's final. Samuel pauses. For the first time, there's a slight crack in his rhythm. Whoopi sees it. Finality shuts doors, she says quietly. Samuel looks at her. Not everything needs an open door. And just like that, the tension spikes again, sharper than before. The audience reaction is loud now. Applause murmurs, a few audible wow. The energy at the table feels different. Less playful. More personal. And it's clear this conversation is no longer about media or celebrities. It's about philosophy. And neither one is backing down. The room hasn't settled. You can feel the tension sitting right on the table between them. Whoopi looks at Samuel for a long second before speaking again. Her voice is calmer now, but firmer. So let me ask you this, she says. Do you think there's value in meeting people where they are? Samuel doesn't answer immediately. He adjusts slightly in his chair. There's value, he says finally. But there's also value in challenging people where they are. Sonny nods slightly. That's fair. Joy jumps in. But challenge without empathy just feels like confrontation. Samuel turns toward her. Why do people assume I don't have empathy? Joy shrugs lightly. Because sometimes your statements sound like ultimatums. He leans forward. They're not ultimatums. They're boundaries. The audience reacts, a few claps, a few murmurs. Whoopi watches him carefully. Boundaries are personal. But when you're speaking publicly, they become statements. And statements are allowed, Samuel replies. Of course they are, Whoopi says. But we're talking about impact. Samuel exhales slowly. Impact cuts both ways. Sonny nods. It does. But when you say things like, not everything belongs in the middle, people hear that as rejection of dialogue. Samuel shakes his head slightly. No, it's rejection of false balance. That line lands heavy. The audience makes that low, thoughtful sound again. Whoopi folds her hands tighter. You think we do false balance here? Samuel answers carefully this time. I think sometimes shows, not just this one, feel pressure to give equal weight to unequal facts. There's a ripple through the audience. Joy's expression sharpens. That's a serious accusation. It's an observation, Samuel says. Sonny looks at Whoopi, then back at Samuel. But who decides what's unequal? Evidence, Samuel says. History. Data. Joy shakes her head. But people don't experience life through data. They experience it emotionally. An emotion without grounding, Samuel replies, can be dangerous. The audience reacts again, louder now. Whoopi steps in before it escalates further. We are not anti-evidence here. I didn't say you were, Samuel replies calmly. But you're implying we platform things that shouldn't be platformed, Joy presses. Samuel looks at her. I'm saying sometimes harmful ideas get treated like respectable debate. The audience goes quiet. That hit. Whoopi's tone shifts slightly, less defensive, more probing. Are you talking about specific episodes? Samuel pauses. I'm talking about a pattern across media. Sonny studies him. You're frustrated. Yes, he admits. There's honesty in that moment. It softens the energy slightly. Whoopi nods slowly. Okay, that's different. Frustration, I understand. Samuel's shoulders relax just a little. Good. Joy still looks unconvinced. But frustration doesn't mean everyone else is afraid. Samuel turns to her. I didn't say everyone is afraid. I said fear exists. Sonny interjects gently. Fear of backlash? Fear of cancellation. Fear of losing sponsors. Fear of trending for the wrong reason, Samuel says. The audience murmurs in agreement. Whoopi leans back. You think we're thinking about sponsors when we talk? Samuel gives a small shrug. Every network thinks about sponsors. There's some awkward laughter. Whoopi smiles slightly. We're thinking about time limits more than sponsors right now. The audience laughs, breaking tension for a brief moment. But Samuel doesn't fully smile. Time limits are part of it too. Complex issues get squeezed into 5-minute segments. Sonny nods at that. That's fair. Joy says, but that's television. You can't have a 3-hour debate every morning. Samuel responds quickly. Then maybe we should admit it's not a full debate. Whoopi raises an eyebrow. We do. It's a talk show. Exactly, Samuel says. So when I come on here and speak strongly, that's part of the format too. There's applause from the audience. Joy leans forward again. But strong isn't the same as dismissive. Samuel's eyes narrow slightly. When was I dismissive? Joy answers immediately. When you said maybe people were never listening. He nods slowly. Because sometimes they're not. Sunny shakes her head. That shuts down the possibility that they could. Samuel pauses. That lands differently. Whoopi watches him closely. You're a powerful communicator. You know words close doors as easily as they open them. He takes a breath. And sometimes doors need to close. The audience reacts again, louder this time. Joy throws her hands up lightly. That's what I mean. That sounds final. Samuel looks at her calmly. Not every door leads somewhere good. There's a heavy silence after that. Whoopi's voice lowers. But who decides which doors are good? Samuel answers, softer now. Each of us. Sunny nods slowly. But when you say that publicly, it sounds like you're saying your judgment is the standard. Samuel shakes his head. No. I'm saying I won't pretend all perspectives are equally valid. The audience erupts, applause mixed with audible disagreement. Whoopi doesn't react immediately. She studies him. That's a dangerous slope, she says quietly. Why, he asks. Because once you decide some perspectives don't deserve equal space, someone else can decide yours doesn't either. That lands. The audience quiets almost instantly. Samuel doesn't respond right away. Joy nods emphatically. Exactly. Sunny adds, that's the principle of open dialogue. Samuel leans back, thinking. Then he says, open dialogue doesn't mean open endorsement. Whoopi nods slightly. No one said endorsement. But platforming can look like endorsement, Samuel replies. Joy sighs. So what's your solution? Silence opposing views. No, Samuel says firmly. Context. Challenge. Clarity. Sunny nods. We challenge things here. Samuel looks at her. Sometimes gently. Joy's voice sharpens. You want us to yell? I want accountability, Samuel says. The audience reacts again. Whoopi raises a hand. Let's slow this down. She turns slightly toward Samuel, her tone more personal now. You know I respect you. I respect you too, he replies. And I've been outspoken my whole career, she continues. I've lost jobs for my opinions. Samuel nods. I know. So when you imply fear at this table, she says carefully, it feels dismissive of that history. That shifts the energy. Samuel's expression changes. Less combative, more reflective. I'm not dismissing your history, he says. But you are questioning our courage, Joy interjects. Samuel shakes his head. I'm questioning systems. Sunny tilts her head. But systems are made of people. And people can resist systems, Samuel replies. The audience claps. Whoopi leans forward again, eyes steady. We do resist. Samuel looks at her directly. Then keep doing it louder. The crowd reacts loudly, applause cheers, a few dissenting murmurs. Joy shakes her head. See? That sounds like we're not doing enough. Samuel's tone rises just slightly. Maybe none of us are. There it is. A crack in the certainty. The audience feels it. Whoopi softens her expression. Now that's different. Samuel exhales. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm saying we're in a moment where half measures feel inadequate. Sunny nods slowly. That's a real feeling. Joy adds. But urgency can also create recklessness. Samuel looks at her. Or it can create momentum. The room buzzes again. Whoopi glances briefly off camera. Producers are definitely signaling wrap-up. But she turns back to him anyway. I think what we're really debating, she says carefully, is whether conviction should override caution. Samuel answers immediately. When caution protects injustice, yes. The audience explodes, applause, gasps, audible reactions all at once. Joy looks stunned. That's a huge claim. Samuel's voice is steady. We're living in huge times. Sunny presses softly. But who decides what's injustice? Samuel looks at her and says quietly, history usually does. And that line hangs in the air. No laughter. No immediate applause. Just wait. The conversation has moved past celebrity commentary. Now it feels ideological, personal, and very, very real. And there's still one segment left. That last sentence lingers in the air. History usually does. For a few seconds, no one speaks. The audience is quiet, not uncomfortable, but reflective. You can feel the shift. This isn't just a sharp exchange anymore. It's heavier. Whoopi clears her throat gently. History, she repeats. History also judges how we treat each other in the moment. Samuel nods once. That's true. Joy looks between them. And history is written by people. Imperfect people. Samuel responds calmly. Which is why we should try to be honest ones. There's soft applause. Sunny leans in slightly. Honesty and humility can coexist. Samuel considers that. They should. Whoopi studies him carefully. So let me ask you something without cameras in mind. The audience chuckles lightly at that. Do you ever worry, she continues, that the intensity you bring might make it harder for someone to hear you? Samuel pauses longer than he has all show. Yes, he admits. That answer changes the energy again. Joy looks surprised. You do? Yes, he says. But I worry more about being unclear. The audience nods, some clapping softly. Whoopi tilts her head. Clarity doesn't always require force. Samuel smiles faintly. Sometimes it does. There's a light ripple of laughter. Sunny says gently, a lot of people watching today are probably split. Some are cheering you on. Some are frustrated. Samuel nods. That's normal. Joy adds, but what do you say to someone who feels talked down to? Samuel's voice softens slightly. That's not my intention. But intention and impact are different, Sunny says. Samuel nods again. Fair. Whoopi watches him closely. I think what we're circling is this. You're arguing against complacency. We're arguing for conversation. Samuel responds. Those don't have to be opposites. Joy crosses her arms lightly. They can feel like it. Samuel looks around the table. Look, I came here knowing we wouldn't agree on everything. Whoopi smiles slightly. That's kind of the point of this table. Light laughter from the audience. But disagreement isn't disrespect, Samuel continues. At least not from me. Whoopi nods. And from us either. There's a small but noticeable easing in the room. Sunny says, I think viewers at home need to see that this right here, is what dialogue looks like. Joy adds, messy. Samuel smiles. Real. Whoopi chuckles softly. Live television real. The audience laughs. But she leans back in, serious again. I just want to be clear. This show doesn't shy away from hard conversations. Samuel meets her gaze. Then keep having them. Joy says, we do. Samuel replies, then we're aligned more than we think. There's applause, not explosive this time, but steady. Whoopi glances at the clock. We're almost out of time. The audience groans playfully. She turns back to Samuel. Final thought. 30 seconds. Samuel inhales slowly. I think we're in a moment where people are tired of feeling like nothing changes. So when I speak strongly, it's not to divide. It's to push. Maybe I push too hard sometimes. But I'd rather push than drift. The audience applauds louder now. Whoopi nods slowly. And I think pushing works best when someone's willing to walk with you. There's a soft from the crowd. Samuel smiles. Fair. Joy adds quickly. See? Compromise. Samuel chuckles. Careful, Joy. Don't water me down. The audience bursts into laughter. Whoopi shakes her head with a grin. And on that note, the segment ends with applause. The camera pulls back. The tension hasn't disappeared, but it's transformed. It feels less like a clash and more like a collision of philosophies. But that wasn't the end of it. Because the moment the show cut to commercial, clips were already being uploaded. Within minutes, short segments hit social media. One clip of Samuel saying, "Not everything belongs in the middle," started trending almost instantly. Another clip of Whoopi saying, "History judges how we treat each other," circulated with thousands of comments. By the time the episode finished airing on the West Coast, hashtags were climbing. Some viewers praised Samuel L. Jackson for standing firm. Others accused him of being dismissive. Supporters of Whoopi Goldberg applauded her for holding the line and defending dialogue. Critics said she was too cautious. Clips from The View flooded timelines. Comment sections were split. But what most people agreed on was this: it didn't feel staged. Entertainment blogs picked it up that afternoon. Headlines called it tense, fiery, philosophical. Some framed it as a clash. Others called it one of the most substantive debates the show had aired in months. Behind the scenes, according to staff reports later shared in interviews, there wasn't shouting. No one stormed off. No producers had to step in. But there was intensity. After the cameras stopped, Whoopi reportedly told Samuel, "You always bring heat." And he replied, "You always bring balance." They shook hands. That detail surprised a lot of viewers when it came out later. Because on screen, it felt explosive. But off-screen, it was two seasoned professionals who disagreed, strongly, and still respected each other. The next day, the panel briefly addressed the moment. Whoopi said, "We don't invite guests to agree with us. We invite them to talk." Joy added, "If it felt uncomfortable, that's because real conversations sometimes are." Sunny mentioned the flood of messages they received, both supportive and critical. And Samuel? He responded on his own platform with a short message. Dialogue only works if everyone's honest. No apology. No escalation. Just that. The clip continued trending for days. Commentators debated whether conviction should outweigh caution. Media analysts discussed the role of talk shows in political discourse. Fans dissected every facial expression. But perhaps the most interesting reaction came from viewers who said they appreciated seeing disagreement without chaos. No screaming. No walk-offs. No personal attacks. Just tension. Just pushback. Just two strong voices refusing to back down, but also refusing to disrespect each other. And that's what made it resonate. Because in a media landscape full of viral outrage, this felt different. It felt real. Now we want to hear from you. Do you think Samuel was right, that not everything belongs in the middle? Or do you agree with Whoopi, that conversation and caution matter just as much as conviction? Was it a necessary clash, or did it go too far? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the Star Talks for more real talk show stories.